Hi guys, I'm Sonia and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I highly recommend that you stop right away and go back and watch part one, because this is part two of a story that I'm doing. It's a 4-part segment and I'm not doing any backtracking or highlighting, so I'm literally going to jump off where I started from part one. So I really just recommend that you stop and go back to part one, please, because you're not going to understand what's going on. If you're returning, welcome back. What up, what up? And so I'm just going to jump right into it because there's a lot of information in the second part. And I still have so much more to tell, and I'm going to try to give as much detail. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. This is a part two segment of Ivan, the story of this relationship. So from the last time that we talked, I left off where we had our first physical altercation, and I ended up escaping and going to my sister's house. I ended up taking the girls, both of the girls, they were really young. I ended up taking them to my sister. Now, my sister lived in Red Oak at the time, and we lived in Pleasant Grove. So I packed them up and I drove all the way from Pleasant Grove to Red Oak. My mother and my stepfather had separated at the time. They were going through marital issues, and so they were separated, and my mother lived in Marshall. I have family in Marshall, and Marshall's about 2 or 3 hours away from Dallas, about 30 minutes from Shreveport, going east in East Texas. So she was living over there with my grandmother, and then all my distant relatives on my grandmother's side of the family. So that's where she was at. I really didn't have anywhere else to go, especially family members that were close to me. So my sister was the only one that was still kind of in Dallas technically. And so I drove all the way to her house with my 2 kids this morning, and I showed up at her doorstep. Now, I didn't tell her what happened. I told her that Ivan and I had gotten into an altercation, that he had beat me up. She could obviously see that because I was all bruised and beaten up and bleeding or whatever. And so I just told her, this is what happened. I don't know what to do. And so she told me, well, you need to call the police. And then she ended up calling my mother. So my mother, my grandmother, and one of my grandmother's sisters got in the car and immediately came from Marshall to Dallas, like right then and there, that second, as soon as my sister called them. I ended up calling the police. The police told me I had to go back to the house for them to arrest Ivan. I don't know if it was too, I don't know. They didn't explain why. I can't remember why they said I had to be there, but I had to go back. So I left the girls there with my sister. I drove back to Pleasant Grove, and they arrested him. I didn't even look in his direction when they put him in the car. He was yelling for me, but I didn't even look at him. By that time, I started packing my stuff. My mother and my grandmother showed up later on. We withdrew my children from school, packed their stuff into a U-Haul, and then we were on our way to Marshall. All of this happened so fast within that morning of, because our altercation started at night, if you remember, and it kind of went on into the morning. And so I got to my sister's like around 7 o'clock in the morning, I think, 6:30, 7 o'clock. By the time we were heading to Marshall, it was like, I don't know, maybe early afternoon. So all of this, we took care of all of this stuff like that fast in the morning. So I moved to Marshall. I wasn't there for very long. But my time there was horrible. It was really bad for me. At the time that all of this has happened, I didn't recognize a lot of stuff at the time. These are things that I didn't know until later on, but I had never kind of been depressed before, and I didn't even realize I was depressed, but I fell into a really deep depression the entire time I was in Marshall. I was just sad all the time. I had just been through something very traumatic. So I was traumatized and I didn't know how to handle it. And as grateful as I am that my mother and my grandmother and the great aunt came to save me, at the same time, I was being told that I just need to pick myself up, that I just need to keep moving forward, that I need to just kind of get over it. I need to move on and maybe that's things that people feel like that's what people want to hear when they've been through something. And I completely understand that part, but for something as horrific as I went through, especially at that time of my life in that period, it's not what I wanted to hear. Nobody was asking me if I was okay. Nobody was asking me if mentally, emotionally, like how I was feeling. They just, I didn't talk about the details of what had happened. This is the last video, part one, is literally the first time I've ever talked about the details of what happened that day or that night. I didn't talk about this with my family. I didn't talk about this with anybody. I just said he beat me up. That's all I said, and that's all they knew. But it was traumatic for me. It was extremely traumatic, and I didn't realize how traumatic it was until I left the situation and I'm living out there, and I'm just sad. I'm just so over the top sad. And my family tells me stories of the things that happened in Marshall, and I can't tell you these stories because I don't remember. I blocked out so much. I just remember getting there and I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to speak to nobody. I shut myself off completely from the entire world. I didn't go back into the dental field because I didn't have the mental stability to smile and hee hee and haha with everybody and just pretend like everything's okay. I actually went to my backup like I normally do and ended up being a cocktail waitress at the only bar in Marshall, and that's where I worked at night. And during the day I would just sleep, I would just drink. I became a severe alcoholic. I started drinking from the time I woke up till whenever. I remember I was even drunk at work sometimes. Being a waitress, walking around, taking orders and drinking. And I remember I would just cry and I didn't want to see anybody and I didn't want to be around anybody. And I was very just unfun, like very not fun. And because if anybody knows me personally, like I'm a jokester, I'm playful, and I love to socialize, and I'm always cracking jokes and laughing, and yeah, that girl did not exist. She did not exist. I hated living in Marshall. I hated it. I had no friends. I had no immediate family that I knew that I wanted to talk to. I was shut off from the entire everything. I was miserable. I missed Dallas. I missed my friends I left behind. I missed the world that I had, the relationship that I had before that night. I still even missed him. You know, the 95% guy that I fell in love with. Yeah, I missed him. And I still couldn't get over like what happened. And for the longest time, for many years after that, I searched for the answer of why. Why me? Why did this happen to me? What did I do that was so wrong in my life? What was I not doing right that God had to punish me and put me through this? I don't understand. Those questions ate at me, ate at my soul. Those questions haunted me and ate at my soul. Like I could not understand why. And the question was always why? Why me? Why? And I searched for that for years. Living there, I just would work at night at the bar. I would meet random people. We would drive to Shreveport. That's why I know it's only 30 minutes from Marshall. We would just drive to Shreveport, go party all night. I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to face my reality. I didn't want to be reminded of what I was going through. So if I wasn't at work, I wasn't at home hardly. And if I was at home, I was drinking or just sleeping. I was just living, surviving. I wasn't even living. I was surviving. I was on survival mode. Not too long after I moved there, my mother had a friend, one of her best friends, for when she worked at the propane company in Midlothian. His name I'm not gonna say, and I'm not even gonna code name him out of respect. But he became a really good friend of mine through my mother. Nicest guy you will ever meet. Like, so fun loving, so charismatic, so awesome. He was a really great guy. He was, I think he was separated or going through a divorce. He had a kid. Him and my mom were super close friends. I became really close with him through her. We started kicking it. We became friends. And I always loved hanging around with him because, for one, he was just, like I said, fun to be around. And we were always joking and laughing. And we went to see George Lopez together. I remember it was one of the funnest nights I ever had. And I just had a lot of love and admiration and respect for him because he was going through depression really bad, and he was a drug addict. He had a lot of things that he had going on. I don't even know the full details of what he had going on, but I remember I would talk to my mom about it because if you met him, you couldn't tell that he had all these things going on because his personality was just like, just out there. But I know he suffered inside, from whatever he had dealing with mentally, his depression. And it was really like we didn't see that, but he admitted that that's the problems that he had. So after living in Marshall for a few months, he had actually came down to visit and stayed at my mother's. It was a little bit before Christmas time, and he ended up going back to Dallas, and he wasn't there but maybe a few weeks, not that long after he came to visit, and he killed himself. He shot himself in the head in his living room. And we were shocked. I was so shocked. I remember my mom telling me, and we sat on the bed and just cried together. He was an amazing human being. Every time Christmas comes around, I think of him. He was, I don't know. That just shows you like how depression can really eat at your soul, can really harm you. His death, I took it as a sign to say, hey, Sonia, you're going through your own shit, but you got to get your shit together. Because I wasn't doing hot. I wasn't doing good at all. My mother was arguing and fighting with me and complaining about how I was being, but again, nobody asked me if I was okay. Everybody just wanted me to take my fucking problem and be like, oh, well, Okay, you went through it. Here you go. Sweep it under the rug. Keep moving. But I couldn't. I needed to mourn. I needed to grieve about my situation. And I didn't realize that that's what I needed. And there's something that I was also being told that, and everybody has their own opinion. When you tell people stuff like, because this is the things I was being told, like, oh, well, you need to be strong and you need to put on a face and you need to think of your kids. I was thinking of my kids, but I don't agree with putting my issues to the side to put my kids first. I didn't agree with it then, and I don't agree with it now. And like I said, everybody has their own opinion, but the shit didn't work for me. It just didn't. And years later, I didn't realize. I learned what worked for me and what didn't. And eventually you'll hear all that stuff. But at the time, I'm being told to put my feeling, to put my shit to the side, to just bury it and then just focus on, being happy and being with my kids and blah, blah, blah. And I tried, but I failed miserably because it did not work for me. It just made my mental state worse. I learned later on, you should put yourself first. How are you, as an unstable, unhealthy person, supposed to make not only your children, but your spouse or your family or whatever, anybody else, how are you supposed to give them energy, this type of happy, healthy energy when you don't have it for yourself to give? I can't give something to people that I don't have for myself. But I was trying to do the best that I could because that's what I was being told to do. Again, nobody was asking me if I was okay. Nobody sat down to listen to say, hey, what's your story? Which I probably wouldn't have talked about it even then, but still, I was being told to just shut up, be quiet, and just keep going. And I couldn't. It did not work for me. I was too busy harming myself in the areas that I was unhealthy in. My drug addiction became stronger. My drinking became stronger because I was trying to numb the feelings that I was told that I couldn't express, that I needed to bury. And that's how I was dealing with it. We ended up going back to Dallas when our friend passed, to his funeral. While I was down there, nobody knew this and nobody knows this, but it was the first time I went to go see Ivan. Now, the entire time I was in Marshall, Ivan was calling me. He was calling me and he would leave messages, or he would call me in the middle of the night and he'd be crying and he'd be drunk and he'd be, I'm sorry and blah, blah, blah. And so it didn't do anything but make things worse for me, because when I would hear him cry, I would cry. When I would hear him say he was sorry, it broke my heart. It was just like, it was just making things worse. I didn't want to talk to him at the time. I didn't want to hear what he had to say. So a few months had passed. Our friend passed away. By the time we made it to Dallas, I was okay. Like, I don't want to end up like this guy, this friend of mine. I don't want my depression to eat me up, because I could see myself going down that road. I wanted the pain to go away so bad, and I was doing it the wrong way by trying to get it to go away. I agreed to meet Ivan after work. He had got a job working at a pawn shop. So I agreed to meet him, and it was the first time I heard what he had to say. And he was remorseful and genuine. He got on his knees and just cried and just begged and just said he was so sorry and he would never do it again. And he was drunk that night. He doesn't even remember half the conversation, and he couldn't remember till later, and he was just so upset with himself. He was ashamed. Like, all the things that you want to hear somebody say when they do something like this, he was saying them. And I still loved him. I still loved him. The person that I saw in front of me was not the monster that did those things to me. The person I saw in front of me was that 95% of the person that I was in love with. That's who was in front of me. That's who I still loved. And I think now, I wanted so badly to believe that he was sorry. I wanted to believe that. I wanted it. Point blank. It's what I wanted, so I wanted to believe it. So I forgave him. I forgave him because I was desperate. I was desperate to make the pain go away. Anybody who's been through depression knows what I mean. It consumes your entire person. And I didn't know how to make it go away. I just wanted to be happy again. So I forgave him. And I told my family I was moving back to Dallas. They weren't happy. But it's not their life, it was mine. So Ivan helped me rent a U-Haul, and he came and got me. Then I moved back. I think it was right after Christmas. Yeah, it was after Christmas and New Year's. And it was like nothing happened. It was like nothing bad happened between us. We went right back into the relationship that we had before the altercation. That guy that was charming and charismatic and sweet and loving, yeah, that's who I went back to. I went back to that guy. He was even more loving. He said he felt bad and he wanted to make it up to me, so he charmed his way back into my heart. And I remember thinking, like, wow, like, maybe we could really make this work. I ended up getting a job at a dental office, a really nice dental office, and there we were, just making shit happen, making money, doing things with the kids again. It was great. It was so great that after a few months after I had come back, that we started talking about having a baby. I wanted a son. He wanted a son. He already had a son, but he wanted another son. And so we started trying to have a baby. I thought, maybe a baby would make things better, for me and him. Maybe it'll bring joy into our life and make him softer or whatever. I don't know. I just knew that I wanted a baby. And so we started trying to have a baby. I think it was like maybe 2 months after I moved back. I know it wasn't that long, but about 2 months after I come back and things are going great, and here we are trying to have a baby. We go to a friend's house, a friend that he had. And I'd been to the friend's house before. I knew the guy, but he started dating this new girl, and I had never met her before. So I introduce myself, we're talking, the guys are outside, and me and her are chit-chatting or whatever, and she's drinking. I don't think, well, I know she intentionally did not mean to tell me, but she tells me that Ivan has had a girlfriend while I've been gone. And up until the day before I moved back, she had been around. And he told everybody not to mention her as I was coming back. I didn't find a lot of the details out till later, but so I don't say anything. I'm shocked because this person is the person who was jealous and controlling and always accused me of cheating, always putting it on me, always acting crazy and had to know what I was doing and what I was wearing, where I was going. This was this person, and the whole time he's the one who's like, there's no way that it was just this one girl. Because then he's on the phone, he's crying, he's begging me to come back, but yet the whole time he has a girlfriend. Like, things were kind of starting to fall into place, but I was still kind of lost. I was still shocked because that had never crossed my mind that he would cheat on me. It just never did. I was too busy trying to clear my own name. So I don't say anything to him while we're there. I don't say anything in the car. And because I'm not speaking to him in the car, he realizes that something's wrong. So he's asking me, like, what's wrong? What's wrong? So we get to the house. I wait for us to get to the house. And then I just start crying. I'm crying because I'm hurt. I'm hurt. Like, you're lying to me. You're telling me that you love me and you want to be with me and you asked me to come back, and here I am and things are going great. But up until the day before I moved back, you had a whole fucking girlfriend that you flaunted to everybody. And I had to hear about through somebody's fucking girlfriend. So I'm like, yeah, I'm upset. So I'm crying, I'm screaming, I'm yelling, I'm cussing. I'm like, how dare you? You make me look stupid. He backhanded me so hard, I thought I broke my teeth. My teeth hit together so hard. And of course, I'm like, you said you weren't going to hit me again. You said you weren't going to do this. And his answer was, well, then you should stop talking shit. You should learn to be quiet. No apology. I got an apology, but it wasn't until the next day when I'm all bruised up. And it's, oh, I'm sorry. But it's like from that moment forward, he started to show his true colors. A narcissistic person in an abusive relationship, they have a cycle of a habit. And this is the cycle of the habit that I lived with. They're nice and sweet and loving and charming, and then when they get upset because something doesn't go their way, or you start arguing with them about something but they still find a way to twist it, then they use that to to act out. But it's not their fault, it's the victim's fault. It's, well, I was talking back, or I was raising my voice, or I was talking shit, or why couldn't I just leave it alone? You made me do this to you. This is your fault. And then the next day it's, oh, remorse and oh, I'm sorry, and flowers, and let me take you out, and it plays a it's a really psychological I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It's just, it affects you because then I start thinking, well, maybe I should just be quiet. Or maybe if I make him dinner today, he'll be okay. Or maybe if I clean the house. Or maybe if I'm a little sweeter when I ask him this. Or maybe I start telling myself like I'm not doing enough, or I'm not enough, or there's something that I'm doing, because that's what he's telling me. I couldn't cook. If I cook something, oh, something was wrong with it. He had to act out, throwing shit on the floor or hitting me, or if I clean the house, oh, it's not clean enough. I didn't clean this, or I forgot to do this, or it would, no matter what I did, it was never good enough. It was never enough. I was never enough. And he kept telling me, well, you should try harder, or you should do this, I start to feel like I'm this small. Like I'm this tiny. Because along with it comes the verbal abuse. You're pathetic. You're a loser. Nobody wants to be with you with kids. You're damaged goods. You're a single mom. Nobody wants you. You should be lucky that I want you. You're ugly. Your job is stupid. Every horrible, harsh thing you can think of, that's what I was told. And then you start to think, what's wrong with me? On top of that, the worst part was I stopped having sex with him because I didn't want a child anymore. I have to put on makeup to cover my black eye and my busted lip to go to work, to go see my family. I have to pretend that I'm crazy about this person when in reality I was going crazy. I don't want a child with this person anymore. So I started to refuse to have sex with him. It wasn't until like the third time I woke up in the hospital, because apparently he started drugging me so he could rape me. And I didn't realize it until about the third time. I woke up and the doctors told me that I had a lot of oxy in my bloodstream. They thought I was a drug addict, a pill popper. And I'm like, I don't even do oxycodone. Like, I smoke, maybe I do coke, but I don't do oxycodone. And that's what he was drugging me with. I didn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. But when I got back to the house, I went through his shit and I found them. What makes it even more fucked up is he bought them from his sister Valerie. His sister Valerie bought them for him. And she knew he was drugging me. He would slip it into my drinks, I guess. But he denied it. He made me feel like I was crazy. Oh, no, it's because you can't handle your drink. Oh, no, it's you. I wouldn't do that to you. You're stupid. Like, those are for my personal use. I'm like, no, you're drugging me. How did I end up with this in my system? And I almost overdosed and I almost died. And I ended up in the hospital. In all honesty, I wish I would have fucking never even found them. Because once I got rid of them, he just started to outright rape me. So I was no longer being drugged. I was being beat up and forced to have sex. After a while, you start to get tired. I started to get tired. It started off small, where I got tired of my life. I needed to fight. And so little by little, I started to fight back. I started to argue. I started to defend myself. I didn't even used to do that. He would outright, that 95% person turned into like 10. He slowly turned into this horrible person. And not, I'm not even gonna say turned, I'm gonna say he was always this person. He just put up a front. He was fake. And so whenever that little 10% of nice, sweet, charming person I would see, I hated it. I hated it. It made me sick to my stomach, because I would just sit there and look at him like, you fake motherfucker. I was miserable. I lived in hell, you guys. It was hell living there. And then one day, a few months after I came back, I found out I was pregnant. And I was sad. I was so sad. Because I didn't want his child after a while. We didn't make that child out of love. I was raped for that child. And I remember feeling so conflicted, because as much as I wanted a son, I didn't want his son. And even through my pregnancy, I still was being beat up. I still was being raped. I was still even being drugged every now and then, because I would fight him so hard to not have sex with him. And it was the worst pregnancy I ever had. I didn't have nobody at the end of the day, when I'm tired and my ankles are swollen, to rub my feet. I didn't have someone telling me I was glowing and beautiful with a child in my belly. I wasn't pawned over like men do their baby mamas and make sure that they're comfortable, have food, have, clothes to fit their growing bellies. I didn't get that. My son came 1 month early, but he was a healthy size. And I looked at him and I just fell so in love. Even if I had such a horrible person in my life, I got one amazing thing out of it. Because I have a son. That means I have a man in my life for the first time ever. My father was not around. My father was estranged. My stepfather didn't come around until I was 13. The only inkling of male love that I had ever was from this person, this monster. Now I have a man that I can mold, that I can raise. And he's gonna love me, a real love, a love that's unconditional, that you're not gonna be able to break. And I was so happy. And I fell in love with my son the moment I saw him. Because during my pregnancy, I didn't feel that way. Not with everything I was going through. But I knew once I saw him, I'll get beat up for him. But I need to start fighting. Because I don't want my son to see that. He doesn't need to see that. It's bad enough my daughters. I did hide a majority of stuff that was happening at the house from my daughters. My daughters had an inkling of things that were happening, but for the most part, I did shield a majority of it from them. They did stay with my mom a lot of the times because they still went to school out there in Red Oak. But they knew that there was stuff going on at the house. They knew that shit was happening. They just didn't know to what extent. It was bad enough they were already tainted. I didn't want another child to be tainted, so I knew that I had to make a change. I knew that something had to change. About 3 months after my son was born, he ended up getting RSV. RSV is a common cold for an adult, but it is deadly, highly deadly for a child, especially a newborn baby. And my son got it really bad. He ended up going to Children's Hospital in Dallas and was in ICU on a machine. The doctors were telling us that we should prepare for my son to pass and to think about funeral arrangements. He was in ICU for almost 2 months. Yeah, a total of 2 months, because he was there for about 3 weeks and then they released him. He was only at home for 1 day. He turned blue and I sent him right back to Children's, and then he was there for another like 3 to 4 weeks. So it was almost 2 months. It was a very stressful time. I was having to deal with my abusive, crazy fucking baby daddy, and then I was still having to go to work, and then I was having to go to the hospital to be with my son. I was exhausted. I just remember I was so exhausted. It was a miserable, miserable time. And one night I'm up there with my son, who's literally on a machine in the middle of the room, and I call Ivan and I'm like, hey, can you bring me some food because I haven't eaten. I came straight from my dental office to work, from work to here. I didn't get any food. Are you coming up here? If you are, can you bring me food? He's like, yeah. So I'm waiting for him. He shows up and he doesn't have any food. He has a huge fucking can of beer, and he walks in and I can tell I know him. He's intoxicated and he's raging. His eyes are bloodshot red and he looks crazy. And I'm just like, this is, all right, here we go. I'm like, what is it? What happened? So we're gonna take a pause and we're gonna go back a little. So when I told you I started to want to like rebel and fight back, okay, I had kind of found out before I got pregnant that Ivan was sleeping with this girl, and he goes on to have a relationship with her later on. I can't remember how I found out, but I remember I found out he was sleeping with this girl and he was having an actual like relationship with her. And so he was staying out and telling me he was with my brother when I knew he wasn't with my brother, or he was saying he was with whoever, and he was going out with her, taking on her on dates. I got tired and I finally said, you know what, I'm gonna do my own thing. So I met a guy, and I'm not gonna get into the story of the guy because he's really insignificant. And So I start dating this guy, or not dating, sorry. I meet this guy, and I ended up sleeping with the guy. We used protection, but I ended up sleeping with the guy, and then the next day I ended up boldly walking into the house after I had been out all night. And I knew he was going to be pissed. But it was the first time I had actually rebelled to say, hey, I can do this shit too. And of course, we got into altercation and whatever. That same week, I found out I was pregnant with my son. That same fucking week. So fast forward back to when we get to the hospital. So we're at the hospital and he's looking pissed. And I'm like, what the fuck is it now? And he tells me that he found an email. Apparently, this guy, who I didn't talk to after that one night, somehow finds out, because he's like the friend of a family member, and somehow found out through my family member that I ended up having a baby, and the guy freaks out. And he's like, oh my God. And so he didn't know how to get a hold of me, so he emailed me and was asking if this was his baby. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is a fucking mess. So I'm like, I've been sitting there like yelling at me like, this guy emailed you and blah, 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 this is what he's saying. And I'm like, let me see the email. Let me read the email. Like, I don't even look at my own fucking emails. Let me read it. So I'm reading it, and sure enough, so I tell him the truth. I'm like, that night that I didn't come home till the next morning, this is the guy. I'm like, I found out I was pregnant this week. I'm like, look, you want to take a paternity test? You can take a paternity test. That's your baby. Regardless of whether I cheated on Ivan or not, for the record, he beat me up. It doesn't matter. I'm not saying what I did was right, because what I did was totally wrong. And it was the only time I ever stepped out of my relationship with him. Because trust me, you deserved a lot more. But I get beat up. We're fighting. He's beating the shit out of me in the ICU of Children's Parkland Hospital with our child sitting right there and on a machine, possibly passing away. The lady next door hears us. She calls the nurse. The nurse comes in. She sees us fighting. She calls the police. I call my sister. It's a huge mess. He doesn't get arrested. He gets escorted out of the hospital. And he grabs my purse on the way out. So he has my driver's license, my social, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, what a great justice system we have, right? All these little things over time is what made me kind of not want to reach out to anybody and tell anybody my shit that was going on, because I just had so much distrust for helping me, anybody helping me. And the very next day is what proved it. My mother comes and she takes me to Burger King, which is like right across the street. She's like, I'm gonna take you to go get something to eat. And so we go, and she's like, I don't know what happened yesterday, and she's trying to dig. I know she's digging. She wants to know what happened, and I tell her the truth. I'm like, yeah, I slept with this guy, but what I know I failed to mention was he beats me up anyway. Because up until then, my family knew that things were going on. They didn't know to what extent. They had no idea to what extent. They just knew we didn't have a healthy relationship. That's all they knew. And my mother takes me back to the hospital. She calls Ivan and she tells him that she is sorry for getting in our business. She hangs up, and then she tells me It's my fault. And then she leaves. That same day, a social worker came and wanted to talk to me. And I blew her off. Because I just thought, nobody wants to help me. Nobody really wants to help me. Nobody knows what I'm going through. I don't trust anybody, and the last thing I need is a fucking social worker in my business because it's just gonna piss him off even more. So I completely brush her off. I don't tell her shit. She's asking and I'm tight-lipped. And I'm just like, I'm not telling you anything. I just need you to leave. So she says she's gonna follow up, and then that's it. I go home and my baby survives. My son ends up doing really well, and I get to take him home finally after a few weeks. I go back to the same bullshit. Now my kids are still going to school in Red Oak, remember? So my mother calls me one day and says, hey, one of the girls said that somebody came to school to talk to them. And I'm like, who? And she's like, a guy, he's asking questions. It was Child Protective Services. They were asking my kids questions, and my kids were being honest and telling them things that they did know. And my mom's like, you need to do something. And I'm like, I just need to hide. I need to get away from them. Literally at the same time, me and Ivan get into, I think, one of the most historical altercations, because it was when I finally said enough is enough. He picks me up from work one day and I'm upset because, yet again, he's still messing around with this girl. And I'm like, who is this girl? Like, I want to know, are you having a relationship with her? At the time, I didn't know a whole lot. I just knew he was seeing a girl, the same girl. And I'm yelling in the car and I'm screaming, and my son's sitting in the back seat, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and he's driving, and we're going down the street, and we're about to turn to go onto our street. So we're arguing, and I'm screaming and I'm yelling, and I'm like, I'm tired of how you're treating me, I'm tired of all this stuff. Like, I'm getting, treated so bad. And he reaches over and he grabs me by my ponytail and he shoves my head in his lap, and he's like, if you don't shut the fuck up and you don't stop bringing this up, then I'm gonna knock your teeth out. He's like, so shut up. And he lets me go. I sit up in my seat. I'm calm. I'm like beyond calm. I'm so just, I had like an outer body experience. I reach over really slow and calm, and I take my seatbelt off, and at that moment we're literally turning on our street. We're making that turn. I take my seatbelt off and I get up into the chair. I put my feet into the chair of the passenger seat in the car, and I turn and I look at him, and his hair is about as long as mine right now. He had been growing it out. And so I reach over, and after I calmly look at him, because I remember he looked at me like, what are you doing? And I went from calm and slow and steady to just so fast. I reached over, I grabbed his back of his head with this hand, I pull back with this arm, and then I just start fucking hitting him as hard and as fast as I could. My knuckles were all bloody and bruised, and they got so bad that I finally had to switch from hitting him like this to swinging out and hitting him like this. And the car's just going down the street. We hit 2 mailboxes. We run up through several people's yards. We could have hit somebody or a car, but we didn't. His mom car gets all fucked up because we're driving her car. And my baby's still sound asleep in the back. Doesn't even wake up. I shattered this eye socket. I busted both of his brow bones wide open, and I fractured his nose. Yeah, I was tired. We get to the house and I get out and I grab my baby from the back seat, and I'm calm. I'm kind of shaking because my adrenaline is just like going. But other than that, I'm calm. So I walk inside and he's like, hey. He gets out of the car. He's like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm going inside. And he's like, well, what about me? Look at my face. I can't walk in there like that. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I'm like, do what the fuck I do. Cover it up and lie. And I just like walk off. So I get inside, and I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous because I'm like, all right, well, we do still live with his mom. She could kick me out. She'd call the police. All these things could happen. So I go and I sit on the sofa. I have my son in the car seat still sitting at the foot, and I'm sitting on the sofa just like waiting, like, okay, let's see what's about to happen. So she comes over to me and she's like, hey, where's he at, blah blah blah, because he didn't walk inside yet. He's still outside trying to figure out what to tell people. I'm like, well, he's outside. And she's like, well, why didn't he come inside? I'm like, I don't know, you gotta ask him. So she goes outside, and I'm just waiting, like, okay, she's gonna come in, she's gonna yell at me, she's gonna say something. She comes back in after a few seconds, and she walks up to me and she goes, you got tired of his shit? And I was like, yes, I did. So he told everybody that he tripped and fell walking up to the house and hit his face on the iron door. I really didn't give a shit what he told anybody. Because after that, I fought back. There was a few times, I could name so many. Once he tried to grab me, and I was in the room and I was on the bed, and he was trying to grab me by my legs. And I remember I got away from him. I was jumping on the bed, and when he came close, I kicked him. I kicked him as fast and as hard as I could, and I broke his nose, and he had to go to the hospital. Another time, he was chasing me through the house, and I was running around the kitchen, because the kitchen, you could run in a circle, and I'm running around the kitchen because I didn't want him to catch me. And as soon as I run by the kitchen, he catches me, and I knew he would. And there was the knives that sit in the block on the counter, and I grabbed one, and I remember I just swung back as fast as I could, and I stabbed him in the leg, and he had to go to the hospital again. That blossomed into my new life, fighting for my life. Again, when you're around this stuff, it starts to become normal. When I heard that Child Protective Services were speaking to my children, I did get nervous, but I was scared. I was so scared. I didn't know anything. I was just scared. His sister Val had just got a new apartment, and in one of my story times, I talk about how I ended up at her apartment. This is why. they wanted me away from him. So I figured, okay, well, maybe if I just move out of the house and move in with her into her apartment, then maybe it's not as bad and I won't get as much trouble. So I ended up moving into her apartment with her, and I lived with her. I wasn't there for very long. I think I was there maybe for a month, maybe. And then after about a month there, my mom shows up one day out of the blue, 8 o'clock in the morning. And she's like, the girls had told them, I guess, enough for them to know or to feel like my children were in danger. They didn't even know that I had moved. First of all, they didn't have my Pleasant Grove address, and they definitely didn't know that I had moved with the sister. The only address on file that they had was my mother's home, because that's the address that I used so my kids could still go to Red Oak. They end up kicking my family's door in like SWAT at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and searching the home. I don't blame my daughters. They told them what they knew. They were young. They were just being honest. And my mom was livid. They were looking for me. So they told her that I had 48 hours to come forward, or they were going to take my kids. So she showed up that same morning at his sister's house, or his sister's apartment where I lived, and was like, this is what happened. You gotta come. You gotta come home now if you don't want to lose your children. And I did. I packed my shit and I went to my mother's. So I'm gonna stop there. Because moving from here, we're gonna go through my CPS experience and what I had to go through after that. You're gonna see how I start to change as a person and how my life starts to change. We still have a long way to go though, so I do appreciate you coming back, those who have came back to listen. I know it's a lot of information. I know a lot of people don't know the stories, even my own family members that knew that I had stuff going on, but they didn't really know what I had going on. So all these things I'm talking about is the first time ever. The very first time ever. And I have a shit ton of stories of things I could say, but there's just too much. You have the idea of the situation I was in and what I had to live through. So I tried to give you as much of that scenario and details as I could. We're gonna keep going. Please, everybody that has come to my channel, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. These videos are being made for a reason. I want to get them out to people that have gone through this stuff. I want this to be made aware that things like this have happened. That I'm not the only person who's gone through this. So the only way to get them out is to try to get some traction on it. So please don't forget to hit like and subscribe, even commenting below. All of that stuff really helps. And I'd really greatly appreciate it. So until then, I will see you on part 3. All right, bye.